Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Snetterton 300 circuit, a sunny Snetterton 300 circuit, I'm delighted to say. Some early morning clouds starting to be burnt away and the temperature starting to rise. The ambient temperature, the temperature on the track, is set to rise significantly over the course of the next hour or so, because round number 3 of the 2019 British GT Championship is coming up very shortly indeed. We've got a field of delectable supercars in both GT3 and GT4, top level professional drivers, some of the best amateur drivers in the country as well, and 2 short, sharp 1 hour sprint races essentially to keep us entertained throughout the day. Well, my name is Andy McEwen. I will be one of several voices keeping you up to date with what's going on out on the circuit today. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in the comms box all day, and for both of these British GT races, by Graham Goodwin. And Graham, I think both of us, when we were watching the cars heading out of the pit lane just a few moments ago, were drooling more than slightly, weren't we, at the prospect of this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, or good morning rather, everybody. It's been a long day already. Yeah, it's not just watching them, it's listening to them. And that's the great thing about GT racing. It's variety. You can tell what that car is just by listening to it rather than just looking at it. But why would you just listen when you can watch these fantastic pieces of machinery? Packed grids in GT3 and in GT4, and with more variety than most championships around the world can muster.
Yeah, exactly. This is a really, really high quality lineup this year, arguably the highest quality lineup we've had for quite some time. Well, that's us two in the comms box. Down in the heart of all of the action, though, as ever, is Andy J. And Andy, I believe you found us a guest commentator for today.
I have found you a guest commentator who was just stalking around, and I thought we should probably grab him. And you're right, incidentally, about the weather. It is heating up big style. When we arrived, it was looking like it was going to be a chilly one. And Joe, Snetterton in the sunshine, barrels of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't get better than this, especially for the British GT format we do here. The 2 1-hour sprint races tend to lead a little bit more action. You've got obviously a grid full of cars, mixture of GT3s at the front and 4s at the back, and all the drivers thinking they should be further up the grid than they probably qualified. So I think it's going to be a good day of racing.
I love it. Speaking from experience then, Monfrere, we obviously miss you not being in a car, but we get you in the comms box, so that's great. Now let's just have a quick word about Snetterton. It's all about kind of coming cleanly out of the second corner, isn't it?
Exactly. It's all going to concertina up there, big hairpin, so you'll be 5th gear, 120, 130 miles an hour down to about 35, 40. So that's like losing your licence on the motorway to driving past a school sort of speed. So that's where everyone concertinas up. When you've got 30 plus cars on the grid, it only takes one guy to brake too late and it all goes wrong for everyone. So eyes forward, and hopefully everyone's clean-ish.
I've got to pick you up on the school thing though, mate. You can't go 40 past the school. That's you've got to go quite a bit slower than that. Now, who do you fancy? It's so hard to pick a favourite at this point because we're only 2 races in, of course, but, well, 3 races now. But nonetheless, who's standing out for you?
I think you've got to look at the Barwell Lamborghinis at being strong again. Both are amateurs. Sam de Haan and Adam Ballin stepping up to GT3 have done a mega job, and they're our first 2 AMs on the grid. The other 2 cars on the front 2 rows are both silver cars, so younger professionals. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic. We've got Gamble here behind us, who's having to carry an extra 60 kilos. So he's got a lot of work to do, but he's got the youth and the experience on Sam de Haan next to him. So I think we're probably going to see the BMW lead, and then with the 60 kilos, he's going to work his tyres and brakes that little bit harder, and it's going to be difficult. But if I was a betting man, I'd put it on Gamble.
All right, I like it. He's thought that one through. Thank you, Joe. You'll be able to hear Joe Osborne joining the lads in commentary. And I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to see who I can line up. As you can see, the cars are still pulling in, and I'll come back to you very shortly.
Thanks, Andy. I'm not sure about this Joe Osborne bloke. He's a bit too good at this, isn't he, Graham?
Yeah, put off the driving past the schools bit. That's there he's going to need some lessons, I'm afraid. But of course, championship winning driver in Europe in GT4 a decade ago, Joe Osborne. I still think of him as a young whippersnapper. Good stuff. Aboard one of our 3 Camry cars for these 2 1-hour encounters. This is the Barwell Motorsport number 69 Lamborghini Huracan GT3. That fantastic 5.2 litre V10 engine screaming away in the rear of that car. And that will be adding immeasurably to the soundtrack of this packed grid, packed and varied grid. Sam de Haan will start that car for this first race.
Indeed, and Sam, one of those drivers who's really improved an awful lot in a relatively short space of time. It's always fascinating to watch these youngsters, isn't it, as they make some of their first steps into motor racing. And Sam, it was only a year or so ago that he was a sort of midfield runner in Mazda MX-5 racing, and now here he is running right at the front, because Sam de Haan, along with his co-driver Jonny Cocker, are the championship leaders coming into this race by 7 points in GT3. Well, as Sam de Haan arrives at his grid slot, down in amongst it all once again is Andy J. Andy, who have you got?
Yeah, I've got Jack Mitchell, who of course shares the car with Sam, and I tell you what, this is going to be a really interesting, wasn't it? You must love the fact that you're starting in pole, although even though you're not starting in the car, you're looking a little bit nervous already.
You're always going to be nervous, yeah. British GT. Tom done an amazing job yesterday to get pole position. We know in the race, because we've got the 60 kilos in, it's going to be pretty difficult towards the end of the race, especially with the pros trying to chase me down. So I think the race, if it goes to plan with Tom in front, he'll get a gap. But then I know the second half of the race, I think it'll be me trying to defend for my life and keep the rest of them behind. But I think this is probably our best chance for a podium. And I think me and Tom are doing a good job so far with the extra added weight in from Alton Park. But I think we just got to make the most of it. It's one of the weekends which isn't going to plan, but I think that's where you can make the most points up for a championship position. So,
I mean, when you say it's not going to plan and we're stood in front of you on pole position, that's a pretty good non-planned weekend in my view. Just talk about the 60 kilos. To a layman, how much of a difference will that feel in the car?
Looking at the data over the weekend, we've seen it's more on braking zones and kind of the pull out the corners. Straight line speed hasn't been affected, luckily, and obviously the BMW have given us a good engine. It's pulls out the corners quite nicely, but compared to
it's mostly about your thinking.
A little bit, yeah. It's always the back of your mind a little bit, especially towards the end of the race. It's probably not going to be as nice on the tyres as it would be with the other cars. So, like I said, I'm getting familiar with the weight now. It's all a little bit different. We haven't tested it before, so it's all a bit new to us. But no, I think just make the most of it and do the best we can.
We love it. Exciting. Good luck, Jack. Thanks for talking to me. I appreciate it. Right, let's see who else is around, shall we? We're being told to clear the grid, but come on, let's nip down and grab Phil Keane, because he is actually the most successful driver in British GT history around Snetterton, would you believe? Phil. Hello, we're live. I know you're not a swearer, but nonetheless, that statistic about you that I've just mentioned to our fine viewers here, you are the most successful British GT driver at Snetterton. Are you feeling the pressure of that?
Well, not really. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've had a good car and good teams for the last 6 years of doing it, so, you know, no pressure. You're being far too humble. I also shouldn't bring up your Blancpain win as well, then, I guess. Well, yeah, we finished second, didn't win, but well, you know, close enough. So yeah, no, the guys have done a good job this weekend. So we'll see what we can do. You feeling good? You feeling sharp? Yeah, I think so. I think the car's feeling good. You know, the engineer's not done a bad job. So you know, we'll see what we can do. God, if I were an engineer and I heard that, I might be having a little word in your shell. I think he needs your nectar points. Good luck, enjoy it. Thank you. Take care, mate. We're going to run down to GT4 just in case, because I hope we've still got time. There's a brand new car joining us in GT4 today, which actually makes this a record-breaking grid for GT4. We have 9 different manufacturers. I'm trying to get down to the Audi. Of course, I forget just how many cars we're looking at. 36 super-tuned race machines is pretty fantastic. I'll tell you what, because I don't want to look like Challenge Annika, let me not run on camera. I'll do this off air. Here we go. Possibly a good idea, that, Andy. Well, as he dashes off down the grid, he's right though, isn't he, Graham? This is an enormous grid of cars. GT3 is in fine health, but GT4, the GT4 category, not just in the UK, but globally, has just exploded into life over the last year and a half or so, hasn't it? It is the place to be if you're a manufacturer, if you're a driver trying to make your first step into top-level GT racing. GT4, what a place to be.
Absolutely, he's really into its stride, and I think we've got better variety in this championship than just about anywhere else on the planet for a national championship, and pretty well most of the international championships as well. New cars, Aston Martin here, as we heard from Andy there, on his way down to see one of the new additions to the grid here. Stella Motorsport coming back with the number 29 Audi, the GT4 car there, another fabulous piece of kit. The Mustangs, 3 Mustangs on the grid here, the BMWs, the KTM, the AMG. You could go on and on and on, and you're not going to run out of the variety that we're going to get in a packed 20+ car grid in GT4.
Well, you're quite right, Graham. It is a fantastic grid, and in amongst it all now, down hopefully at the GT4 end, is Andy J.
I certainly am, yeah. We are right at the fact, and P2 in actual fact, with the Audi. I've got Senan here now. Senan, this is a historic moment, I should be correct in English, shouldn't I? With the Audi starting in GT4 and British GT, making it 9 manufacturers. Are you feeling any of that pressure? The R8's looking good. Does it feel good?
Yeah, the car feels absolutely amazing. Stellar performance, and the Audi R8's performing really well this weekend. We've literally brought the car out of the box with no testing, and to be up at the front straight away, it's clearly a proven car. Me and Richard have just had to adjust our driving styles a little bit to suit the car, and straight away we're battling at the front, which is what we want to see. So yeah, I'm excited for this race. Obviously, there's a lot of cars out there. We're not sure what the race is going to bring, but I've just told Richard, go out there and enjoy it, and what will be.
Well, you've answered some very early questions, with Mustangs and Astons and McLarens all around you. People were kind of going, what's the Audi going to be like? Well, starting P2, pretty swift.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's proven itself straight away. We didn't get as much running as we wanted in free practice 1 and free practice 2, so going into qualifying, no idea where we was going to be. So to be starting here for the race, it's definitely a big confidence boost. But yeah, we'll just hopefully we can stay around this area towards the end of the race and see what position we'll come in.
Sounds good. Stay safe and enjoy it. Thanks for talking to us.
Cheers.
We've got a dash. Brilliant. Guys, it's pretty much race time. How exciting is this? I'm going to hand back to you because I have to clear off.
Yes, I think you ought to, because it's about to get very noisy down there on the grid, isn't it?
It is, and just another quick factette about that Audi effort. Stella Motorsports still have that programme in the background with another manufacturer, GT4, but team principal and their lead technical guy both involved in British touring cars back in 1996 with Frank Bieler and Audi. And they're back with the mark that they made that championship success, well over 20 years ago now. And great to see them back up at the sharp end here. This is going to be mega. 60 minutes of fantastic entertainment to come. The McLaren 720S safety car will lead this field away. Well, what are we going to look forward to here, Andy? You're the expert, come on.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because you don't know where to look in these races. Alton Park was frantic from start to finish, quite literally. We had the two leaders in GT3 making contact a lap and a half into the first race. We had the GT4 battles getting a little bit physical at times as well. And then when the GT3 battles capture the GT4 battles to lap them, well, all hell breaks loose then, and it gets rather entertaining. BMW and Lamborghini then on the front row of the grid for GT3. Century Motorsport ahead of Barwell. The 69 car in second position on the grid is the championship leading car, as I said. In fact, Barwell are first and second in GT3 at the moment. On board here with the number 47 TF Sport car of Jonny Adam. TF Sport really could do with just a clean race, quite honestly. They had a bit of a nightmare at Alton Park, particularly the number 2 car that was involved in 3 separate spins or accidents within the first lap and a half of the season. So Mark Farmer will be hoping for a cleaner start in car number 2. In car number 9, though, Tom Gamble will take the start for Century Motorsport. They're one of the 3 silver driver combos in GT3, with Barwell, Sam DeHaan alongside. Adam Ballon in the next Barwell Lamborghini has Glyn Geddes, Bentley, Team Parker Racing Bentley alongside on row 2. Oliver Wilkinson is the first Aston Martin for Optimum. He's 5th with Sean Balfe in the new McLaren GT3, 6th on the grid. The second BMW of Dominic Paul's got Graham Davidson in the TF Sport car alongside Michael Igoe and Rick Parfitt Jr., who missed a gear on his quickest qualifying lap yesterday. That's why he's further down the order than we expected. Beach Dean's Andrew Howard and TF Sport's Mark Farmer make up the 6th row ahead of Richard Neary and our first GT4 car, Scott Maxwell, in the number 15 Ford Mustang. Stellar Performance's Audi. Richard Williams is next ahead of Josh Price, former BTCC racer, Callum Poynton for HHC, and Josh Smith for Tolman, a pair of McLarens next up in the GT4 grid. Mark Kimber and Luke Williams are next along. Luke Williams, former Formula Ford star, and then just outside the top 20 overall, but well and truly within the GT4 scrum, will be Lewis Proctor and Mark Murphy in the Fox Motorsport Mercedes, which showed some flashes of speed last time out. The second Multimatic Ford Mustang has new drivers this weekend. Alistair McKinnon will take the start in that car. Andrew Gordon Colebrook and Nick Jones want to keep an eye on, I reckon, in the Team Parker Racing Mercedes, 26th on the grid. Ash Hand and Mike Robinson are next still. Again, just star drivers up and down the order. Sam Smelt raced in BTCC last year, and so too in the past has Kelvin Fletcher, who's getting quicker and quicker every time he hits the circuit. Graham Johnson for Balfe Motorsport is next ahead of Ben Hurst, with Mike McCollum for the track-focused KTM Crossbow and Paul Weiss in the Jaguar that got a podium last time out. Alex Toft-Jones and Chris Carr are at the back of the grid as we get set to go racing. 1 hour, there is a mandatory pit stop that must be made by every car. There are pit stop windows that we'll get into later on. The GT3 cars and the GT4 cars have slightly different windows in which they can come into the pit lane to make their pit stop. The driver changes will take place then. The AM driver, incidentally, is the driver that will start this race. So for all Pro-Am combinations, it is the amateur driver that set the qualifying time for this first race. They therefore start this one. Race 2, it's the other way round. The pros go first and the AMs take the cars to the finish. For the silver driver combos, they can sort of chop and change as they like, but they have that weight penalty, and in GT4 case, longer pit stops to serve as well. Place your bets, everybody, side by side for round number 3 of the 2019 British GT Championship, with Tom Gamble and Sam Haan making up the front row of the grid. Lights will go out shortly. Away we go. The thunder rises, and already we've got a TF Sport Aston Martin on the grass on the run down towards the first corner. It's a narrow pit straight, but I think they avoided significant contact. Tom Gamble will lead the way. It looks as though the Glingedi driven Bentley was into 3rd position. They made a good start at Old Park before that contact down at the chicane. They've gained ground here as well, into 3rd position. Oh, contact between the race leaders. Tom Gamble gets nerfed out of the way by Sam Haan, and Glingedi comes charging past the pair of them into the race lead. Ollie Wilkinson in the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin goes 3rd. The Team AMA car is on the grass, I think that was, with an issue, we have to assume, after contact. We thought it might get congested down at that hairpin, Joe Osborne, and it really did.
Yeah, it looks like Sam Haan just slightly outbroke himself. Gamble had to lift out the throttle. It also looks like Farmer had some smoke coming out the back. There's something Optimum GT4 on the grass to the inside as well. So action coming thick and fast as we did expect, but looks like everyone bar at least one car should continue, I would say, after this first half a lap.
That is the Team AMA car, isn't it, Graham? That is not healthy.
No, that's not going any further, is it? Number 8 car, the 75 car, by the way, has recovered from that grassy moment. That's rejoined, but the 8 car in major trouble, or rather was trying to rejoin. That
possible damage, I think, is there?
I think so, and also trouble for one of the Century Racing M4s.
Yeah, can't quite see the number on that one, but they had a troubling time at Old Park last time out, and unfortunately things not improving here. Glingedi immediately gets rid of those plastic markers on the apex down at Brundle, but he is starting to pull away then. Well, we thought it might be one of the silver driver combos that led at the opening lap. It's not necessarily the one that we expected, but it will be, it would appear, the Team Park Racing Bentley that's had the best of the starts. They're the second of the Century Motorsport BMWs. That car started by Dominic Paul, and he's running in, I reckon that's 5th position, as the leaders come out of the final corner Murray's for the first time after what has been a frantic opening lap of racing here at Snetterton. And let's count them across the line then. It's Glingedi that leads the way. Tom Gamble in 2nd position is 1.4 seconds behind him. Ollie Wilkinson's up to 3rd, ahead of Sam Haan 4th. It looks like the wing mirror is flapping on the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin after a bit of rubbing on the opening lap. To Haan 4th, then Adam Ballon, his teammate, is 5th, Dominic Paul 6th, and Rick Parfitt Jr. is 7th, so he's had a really good start. In GT4, by the way, it is going to be the Audi, isn't it? The Stellar Performance Audi with a stellar opening lap, and they have taken advantage of some of the shuffling in GT4 to take the lead. The Multimatic car, Graham, down to 3rd.
Absolutely, great start for Richard Williams in the number 29 car. Pulled out an excellent 2nd position on the debut for the team with this brand new car, and is pulling away here.
Mustang doesn't half sound nice, does it, as it now applies the pressure for 2nd position. So the number 15 car has been started by Scott Maxwell. He's looking to the inside here, down towards Agostini. It's Callum Poynton in the HHC McLaren. He's trying to overtake, and does overtake with a nice move under braking. Can the McLaren fight back on the exit of the corner? No, it can't. Nice move, and now it sets off after the Stellar Performance Audi ahead. So through Hamilton they go, down towards the right-hander at Oggies, and in GT4 the early shuffling as we expected. There is the WPI Racing Lamborghini. That's Michael Igo who started. That's their first appearance in the GT3 category. They were out in GTC last time out in a class of their own in their Porsche. They've upgraded now to a GT3 car, albeit not the Porsche we anticipated they would. They're in a Lamborghini instead, but you can't have too many Lamborghinis, can you really? And they are already running inside the top 10 overall. Right, Barwell Lamborghinis at play here then, Graham. Sam Haan, we know that he was involved in that bit of contact at the hairpin. If there is any damage, that may explain why Adam Ballon is really starting to apply the pressure. If you're the team manager, do you sort of send that message out that Adam is faster than you need to get out of his way, or do you just let them race?
You let them race. He's certainly got some damage on the right-hand side of the car. I think there's been side-to-side contact more than once on that opening lap. Under pressure, though, behind is the 72 car, and the position goes to the way of the number 3 Century Motorsport car.
Yeah, Dominic Paul, they're making a nice move, goes into 5th position there. Adam Ballon, that's quite often the case around here though, isn't it, Joe? It's quite a momentum circuit. If you go for a move, or you're thinking of going for a move and it doesn't work, you can lose momentum and actually end up under pressure from the cars behind.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're seeing different characteristics of cars there. The Lamborghini's great all around the circuit, whereas the BMW seems to struggle in the slow speed, but to compensate is better at the high speed, and I think that's how he's got past him into turn 1 there, just a higher top speed, and he's now getting his head down. Looks like he's actually reeling in Sam de Haan also in front of him quite quickly.
Who in turn is right on the tail of Ollie Wilkinson in 3rd, so the top 2 are escaping, as you would expect though, because they are the 2 silver driver combinations then. Glenn Geddy will hand over at the pit stop to Ryan Ratcliffe, whilst Tom Gamble in car number 9 will hand over to Jack Mitchell. Ollie Wilkinson, the first of, is also actually a silver car, isn't he? So the 3 silver entries in GT3 at the front of the field. Already some track limits warnings coming out, Graham, but it's been an entertaining start for this one.
It has. Just to confirm the cars that are on the race, we've seen again Richard Neary out of the race in the number 8 AMG, but also not making it past lap 1 or through lap 1, the number 75 Optimum car. That car in the hands of Mike Robinson. We saw Mike trying to get the car back on track, not managing that. Andrew Gordon Colebrook it was in the number 43 Century Racing M4. Those 3, I'm afraid, early bath for all 3 of them.
That's a real shame for them, but the battling continuing in GT3 then, as Sam de Haan tries now to regroup. He's applying the pressure to Ollie Wilkinson in front of him. This is an impressive performance so far for de Haan, who is the leading Pro-Am car at the moment in the race. 4th position overall for the championship leaders. They came into this race 7 points ahead of the teammate number 72 car, which of course has just lost that position. They're down into 6th place now, and the JRM Bentley of Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt are 3rd in the points. Here's a replay of the start. Oh, well, the TF Sport car gets elbowed off, I think, by the Bolf Motorsport McLaren, didn't it there?
It was 3 wide and the right from the start there. Then there was the nerve to the rear, 3 wide there again. And this is where the Aston Martin went and took a look up the inside.
Oh,
the area
what are we
as
seeing
well,
here,
I think,
Joe?
is where the contact comes for him that ends his race. Is obviously concertinaed up. And then that was a lazy spin for the car in front. I didn't quite catch that one.
That was 75, I think.
I think so, yeah. And whether that was assisted or not, I'm not too sure. I think it was just a bit over-exuberant with the loud pedal, wasn't he? On cold tyres especially, you have to be a little bit cautious with that. Another GT4 Aston Martin, that's the 61 example, that the car ran out of Academy Motorsport. All of the Aston Martin teams upgrading over the winter to this new generation Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Back with Maxwell, we've got Battlejoy now for the GT4 lead then, because he is now on the tail of the number 29 Stellar Performance Audi R8 LMS GT4 of Richard Williams. 2 more different cars you couldn't really hope to see here, Joe. The Mustang seems to have an edge in certain parts of the circuit, but where does it make the overtake?
It looks like the car is really well balanced flat-wise. When you get the view of it coming into the brake zone, it hits the brakes, it doesn't dive at all, which is a great thing. As a driver, the car keeps balanced. Looks like the car might be quite difficult to drive. Maxwell's holding the steering wheel, pretty unconventional position there. He's got his right hand quite low, so I don't know if it's a bit of a beast to get in. It looks like a big heavy car, but I'm sure he's going to be able to hustle it around. And that Audi, I think it's going to struggle now because the team's new to the car. They probably haven't had a chance to do many race runs. So obviously over a lap it's quick, but to do a full race, the car will definitely change its characteristics.
Well, I can tell the answer to that is none. No real major testing been available for the team with this car, so it's been a remarkable start to their season. Scott Maxwell, amongst the most experienced racers in this race. Canadian, maybe not that familiar to British GT followers, but trust me, across in North America, Scott has been around since God was a lad.
And he and Seb Prio, his co-driver, joint championship leaders in GT4 coming into this weekend, along with the number 57 HHC Motorsport McLaren, which we can see on our screen at the moment, 3rd in the GT4 category. Well, whilst the action on the circuit continues to rage, it has calmed down ever so slightly since the start of the race. Time therefore to check in with Andy J in the pit lane.
Yes, I'm with Adam, and I mean, what can I say, Adam? You don't want to see this on any race, but especially not in the first race of the weekend so early on. Yeah, it's a real shame. It looked like he got a great start off the line, managed to jump 2 of the cars, and then sadly I think just went a little too hot into turn 2 and had contact, and it looks like it split the rad, so he's turned it off because obviously we don't want to damage the engine. We want to make sure that we can get out for race 2 where we're starting 5th. But yeah, obviously the boys are going to have a bit of hard work to do, getting the bumper, radiators and a few things squared up and making sure we can get out for this afternoon. but the early expectation is you will be racing in the second race.
Yeah, that's the plan. Like, I doubt, like, it's just a bump. It's one of them that sadly it's just got to the radiator, and of course once the radiator's pierced, you've got limited time before it cooks the motor, so we just turned it off straight away and pulled over into a safer place.
It's the right thing to do. All right, thanks Adam, appreciate it.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. We'll see you in the next race.
That's a shame then. The car that finished second in race 2 at Alton Park last time out. Joe Osborne, I think, was just making the point to us that actually, of course, they don't want to not finish, but they were going to have to serve an extra 7-second penalty in the pit lane anyway. So if ever there was a race to not go to plan, I suppose this was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And Adam's obviously a full-time factory driver of Mercedes AMG, but you're working with an amateur, and half your battle here when you're a pro with an AM is trying to find positives and keep their head up. Richard's a great bloke and a good driver, but spending a lot of money to be here, and when you get a duff result like that, you need to try and draw some positives, and one of them is at least they won't be losing their best result because they did have that pit stop penalty to serve.
Looking back again, by the way, at that replay, gave us an opportunity to unpick it. It was rear contact. Richard Neary on the rear of Mark Farmer's Aston Martin, which also, by the way, caused an effect, explains the smoke we saw from the TF car at the start of the race.
Trouble. That's the 19 Multimatic Mustang then, which had this new driver lineup this weekend. It was Alistair McKinnon who started the car, and he's got a front left puncture. Now, I don't see any damage on the car, but we have to assume, Joe, at this early stage of the race, that can only surely have been contact that's caused that.
Yeah, I think you're correct there. I couldn't see any damage, and it looked like the inside tyre wall was the bit that had failed. And that is a problem you find with racing tyres. The teams want to run the pressures as low as possible and their camber as high as possible to generate more grip. The negative to that is that it normally causes a failure very similar to that. So I would maybe a bit worried if I was Maxwell and Multimatic guys that maybe they need to be a bit careful with their front left especially. So we might have to start nursing the car. That would be fed back to him. I'm sure that the sister car's had a failure, and please think about what you're doing.
Meantime, it's still a great battle at the front of this GT4 field. Still Richard Williams, mirrors full of, and very full, very large Ford Mustang behind. Scott Maxwell doing all he can do to put the Audi man ahead under pressure, but for the moment, after missing Alton Park, it's a very happy return to the British GT Championship from Stella.
Yeah, it is. They're a bit wide of the apex there. They're going through Williams, so could this be Maxwell's opportunity? He's no closer, though, than he's been on previous laps going down the back straight, and I did notice from the onboard a lap or so ago, there's nothing in it in straight line speed. This will be the GT3, yes, that's the Beach Dean car, after its rotation on the opening lap, which dives up the inside and left just enough room by the Mustang to squeeze through there, but can't have trouble. Oh, that's Sander Haan, who's spun at the hairpin. Now, how has that happened? He's headbutted the advertising hoarding. That won't damage the car, but it's certainly going to lose him positions. He was holding on to that 4th position and attacking Ollie Wilkinson. Let's see, Joe, talk us through this.
So yeah, it looks like Paul's had a last-minute lunch. And I don't want to point fingers, but that's definitely his fault. And yeah, Sander Haan didn't look like he did anything wrong at all there to me. He was defending his position, clean and fairly. And Paul, I'm sure, no intent, but I'm sure the race director's going to have a look at that one because he's gained a position and Sander Haan has lost a fair few there in that incident.
Dropped him down to just ahead of newcomers to the GT3 class, the 18, the BPI car. So Huracan and Huracan battle now. But have pumped up Sander Haan for sure after that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Graham Davidson also joining in the fun there as well. Here's a replay from on board with Haan. Wait for it. Bang, there he is. And he was lucky, wasn't he, Joe, not to beach it on that curb on the inside. We saw that happen to Mark Farmer at Alton Park last time out. Not even on the curb, just on a slightly cambered edge of the road. He thankfully had the presence of mind to keep the car moving and didn't get beached. Can that damage the undertray of the car, though, rattling over those curbs?
It can do, but luckily GT3 cars are a flat floor, so carbon fibre and aluminium, so actually it's going to dissipate the energy at least. There's not one pit that will rip the sump off, for example, on a normal road car. And luckily the Lamborghini is actually an automatic clutch, so he wouldn't have stalled. It will automatically come in, so he wouldn't have stalled, and then he just buried his foot and kept it going. It was the rate it went round. He did well not to do a full spin. Looks like the Mustang's got a new tyre and is coming back out. It's going to be right in the middle of this GT3 battle, however, so he's going to have to pay attention.
That's music to the ears, I'm sure, of the GT3 cars that are charging through. Edric Parfit, he's inherited 6th place now, of course, after all of that. Sean Balfe up into 7th place, and yet Haan rejoined in 8th position, but some way back. A couple more cars being warned for exceeding track limits. Car number 58 is one of them, but it's only a warning for the time being. It's early in the race, though, to be being warned about track limits, so they'll have to be a little bit careful.
Clint Geddy, meanwhile, is pulling away at the front of this race. Almost 8 seconds to good now from Tom Gamble. Last minute replacement here for injured Adrian Wilmot.
Yep, and there's the other Bentley, the the JRM example of Rick Parfitt, who is busy defending from Sean Balfe, but he's catching actually the number 3 Century Motorsport BMW. Someone kicking up the dirt. Oh, it was Dominic Paul, wasn't it? Got a wheel on the grass turning into Hamilton, and that's another easy position gain for those two. They both drive through. I was about to make the suggestion that Dominic Paul may have possibly done some damage to the aerodynamics at the front of that car. I don't think you can blame aerodynamics for that one, though. It looked to me, Joe, like he just dipped a wheel on the grass turning into Hamilton.
Yeah, unfortunately, a very common and easy mistake in the left-hand drive car. You can see how wide that BMW is, so he's got 4.5, 5 foot of car to his right. Only takes a couple of inches of that to be on the dirt as he turns in. And if you actually see next time we get a shot of that corner, it's actually worn down to mud there, so it's how common that happens. The grass has been worn
Meanwhile,
away.
taking advantage of that, but also in a battle of their own, for what is now going to be 5th position, Rick Parfitt Jr. now under real pressure from Sean Balfe. This car missed, of course, the opening rounds at Ilton Park, but well, Joe, you'll be very, very familiar indeed with the luscious lines of the McLaren 720S.
Yeah, I try not to sound biased, but I'm going to be massively biased about it. It's obviously a beautiful car and one of the new generations of cars, along with the Bentley, but we focus massively on the development, so it's current on its tyres and drivable. So hopefully, as Sean Balfe and Rob Bell will prove that over the next 44 minutes that we've got remaining, it will continue to climb the order. And I think the interesting thing for both Balfe and Parfitt here, actually, they're 3rd and 2nd respectively in the Pro-Am part of this GT3 race. So we've got Geddy, Gamble and Wilkinson in the top 3 on track, but they're all silvers. So unfortunately, when their co-drivers get in and come up against the full gold lineup in the Pro-Am cars, they've not only got more weight, but technically by their driver grading, they should be a bit slower. So for me, this is shaping up to be a real classic race. We're going to have a lot of cars catching cars in front of them.
Yeah, we've got astonishing quality to come in the British GT Championship. We saw this last year start to emerge, with Aston Martin throwing a lot of hats in the ring. Of the 13 cars in the GT3 class, 6 of them would have, we've now lost Adam Christodoulou, would have had factory talent aboard that Lamborghini with Phil Keane. Rob Bell, the still attractive but still remarkably astutely challenged Rob Bell, very rapid indeed in the McLaren, and 3 Aston Martin factory drivers. That's when we get to the bar brawl.
Indeed. Leaders in GT4 then work their way down towards Rich's corner. Oh no, Mark Farmer has, well, let's wait and see what happened, how exactly he got there, but we can see the end result. He's been off. There's damage from the back of the car, which was as a result of the contact, we assume, on the opening lap. That, again, was down at left-hand kink at Hamilton, which is proving to be a particularly tricky part of the circuit. There, Andrew Howard in the Beechdean car. He is some way down the order, isn't he? Andrew Howard is, yes, there he is, 12th position, so he's the last of the GT3 runners. Mark Farmer has spun and rejoined, and he's still in front of Andrew. That's how far back he is.
Yeah, that comes courtesy of Andrew's troubles at the start of the race. He has pulled back a lot of time. There is big damage to the back of that Aston Martin. That was some hit at the start of the race. Not surprising, the front end damage for the AMG when you look at how badly deformed the otherwise beautiful lines of that Aston Martin are.
Yeah, indeed, and that's. I'm trying to look at whether that under tray at the back and the diffuser has been bent at all. I don't know, your eyesight may be better than mine, Joe, and you know what you're looking for more than me.
Yeah, I'd say yes, there's definitely detrimental performance in that diffuser. The diffuser does like 2 or 3 times more work downforce-wise in the rear wing, so that is going to be hurting. I'm not saying that was his whole reason for spinning at Hamilton, but it definitely won't have helped. There's nothing the team will be able to do at the pit stop in that. Maybe throw some tape on it so nothing falls off it, but they're going to have to carry that all the way through the rest of this race. So it'll be interesting to see what Nicky Team can do with that car there.
Still battling hard for this lead in GT4. Richard Williams is getting away here from Scott Maxwell. There's certainly more clear air than we saw last time around, and what was tense, now over a second last time across the line. If anything, looks to me as if the Audi man is pulling further away. Behind them, though, Josh Smith is now into 3rd place. The 2 McLarens have swapped positions. The Tolman car number 4, is now ahead of the HHC example of joint championship leaders Callum Poynton. Back with the GT3 scrap for 3rd place, though, and Ollie Wilkinson, unlike his fellow silver graded drivers in front of him, Glyn Beddy and Tom Gamble, has not been able to pull any sort of a margin over the leading Pro-Am contenders. So Adam Ballon, the leading AM driver in this race at the moment, in 4th position, and is really harrying the Aston Martin. Now, Joe, we used to see that the older, or the previous generation Aston Martin GT3 car really well suited to this place, wasn't it? But this is quite a different beast altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest changes going from a naturally aspirated V12 to the now twin turbo one, and I think it looks harder to drive out the slow corners. The turbos are having to come in, and then the traction controls have to deal with that, otherwise the rear tyre is going to spin up and you're going to lose performance. So I think that's probably where they're lacking here in the nature of the circuit. So the fast flowing stuff, they look all right. It's the tight twisty stuff, and as they come up to these GT4 cars, I think this is where Ballard's going to probably find his best opportunity to close up on Ollie, who's doing a mega job in third position here. And if he can get that car there to Brad Lielis in the pits, that car I would fancy to probably stay in the podium, to be honest. But so far GT4s seem to be pretty well behaved. None of them are in a tight battle, which always makes it a bit harder to overtake. Someone going
down the track. It's a bit confusing, that, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
it's a bit like a go-kart circuit here in the middle, isn't it? It weaves this way and that, but no, that caught me out for a brief moment. Very close here then for third place, Graham.
Yeah, Ollie Wilkinson did well through traffic, Ballard did better, and through they come, just tenths between them. Ollie Wilkinson, by the way, has been catching Tom Gamble over the last couple of laps as well. So that gap is, at worst, stable. If I'm right, I think that's coming down as well.
Yeah, by 4/10 last time around. Personal best lap set by Ollie Wilkinson despite the pressure. As a driver, Joe, do you get spurred on when you've got this sort of pressure behind you? Can that bring the best out of you, or do you just sort of find yourself focusing in the mirrors and losing time?
Yeah, at least Ollie's only got one mirror, so he's not getting distracted quite as much. However, I think the main thing here is he's got to keep his eyes up. The cars now are so advanced, we have what we call a delta in the car, which is set from our fastest lap, and then it's a live update if we're going faster or slower. So Ollie will just be focused on that, trying to work out where he's losing time to his best lap so far and eking it out there. And as we see, it is only tenths of a second, which is impressive consistency, but all overall pace. So he seems to have had a pretty calm first 20 minutes, I would say, Ollie. So I think he's got his head down. He definitely doesn't look like he's being distracted by the charge and Ballard.
There is an issue, I'm afraid, for Century Motorsport number 3 car. He's been handed a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for causing a collision. I think we all know which collision that was as well. And so the number 3 car will have to serve a 10-second stop-go penalty. This looks rather lively. Lamborghinis at play. Barwell Motorsport versus WI. And the WI car and Michael Igo getting stuck in here, isn't he, Graham? The first appearance of that car in the championship, and they are up there inside the top 10.
It's a Lamborghini 3-car train here, because just ahead of them, Haan, and these 3 are actually catching Sean Balfe, albeit with some traffic to play with, but 3 Hurricanes, nose to tail. It's a V30.
There is Dominic Ball then, diving up the inside of the track-focused KTM Crossbow of Mike McCollum, running down in 7th place in GT4 Pro-Am at the moment, but they're 29th position overall. But yeah, really impressive pace this from Michael Igo in the WPI Lamborghini. One of the key things about these GT3 cars these days, though, Joe, is they're very user-friendly, aren't they? So, whilst it's never easy to jump into a car that's going this quick, they are maybe a little bit less difficult than some other cars just to get your head around early on.
Yeah, 100%. And I made a good example of that yesterday. I was at Silverstone racing a Jaguar E-Type, where I had to press 1 of 3 pedals, manual gearbox, no ABS. And yeah, it focuses the mind how difficult they are. But it's a great testament to what the manufacturers have done technology-wise with the GT3. And my personal involvement when we developed the 720S GT3, as we all know, they're going to be Pro-Am most in these sort of championships, but also DOP, so we should all be doing the same lap times. Looks like the pit window's open and people are diving in to get the GT3 window rolling. Not surprisingly, all the AMs want to come in as early as they can to get their quicker Pro in, so their loss is small as possible.
But with the exception of 2 of the Lamborghinis that go powering on through, Glenn Geddy, he stays out. He's 6.3 seconds up now on Tom Gamble.
Interestingly, looks like Optima have saved a new set of tyres there, so Brad's going to get 2 laps of new boots, which for me is probably worth 3 or 4 seconds on. Looks like Keeney's having to go on scrub tyres, so Brad should be able to get his head down and maybe get a bit of a gap to Keeney getting in the car.
So a change for this year in the regulations means that the GT3 pit window opens a few minutes before the GT4 one. This is to try and limit the amount of congestion in the pit stops, which is a good move, I think, on safety grounds. As far as pit stop penalties are concerned, if you were on the podium in race number 2 at Alton Park last time out, you will have to spend a bit longer in the pit lane this time around. So the winners in GT3 last time out at race 2 at Alton were the number 69 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. They will therefore therefore have to serve an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane on top of the minimum pit stop time that already exists. The 99 Beechstein car, as if their day wasn't going badly enough, will also have to serve a 5-second success penalty. The other car that would have had to serve time in the pit lane was the Team ABBA Racing Mercedes AMG car number 8, who was second at Alton Park, but that is sort of irrelevant now. So changes as they come out of the pit lane. Looks as though some teams have made a better job of that than others.
Out ahead of the Bentley is Rob Bell now aboard the Balfe Motorsport McLaren, but also the TF, that was one of the TF cars had also gone by the Bentley too. Through comes Team Parker car, the number 7, low-flying Spitfire soundtrack.
It looks and sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But it doesn't half go quickly. And Glyn with this enormous lead, really. It's even bigger now, actually, because Tom Gamble from second place has just pitted. So the number 9 machine is in, and Century Motorsport will service the car, hand it over to Jack Mitchell. And it will now be interesting to see how this dynamic changes with the pro drivers getting into the Pro-Am cars and another silver-graded driver into the silver ones. There is Sam de Haan. He's in, handing over to Jonny Cocker. But as I said, they have this 10-second extra pit stop penalty to serve. So whilst they were the leading Pro-Am car before pit stops began, that now looks a little bit less likely to be the case afterwards. We have this minimum pit stop time, so there's not a huge element of rush in the pit stops. You have to be stationary, or you have to spend a certain amount of time between the pit timing lines. It's from pit in to pit out that the time is measured, so it just means that you can go about your business a little bit more, not leisurely, but it's not quite the same sense of rush, less likely to make mistakes, I suppose. 57 McLaren there going a lap down. They're still running third, but they're back into third now in GT4 because the number 4 Tolman car has pitted. So it can't have done because it's gone ahead, So yeah, the number 4 car pulling away from 57 HHC.
We'll work through the final pit stops for the GT3 pack still to come down pit lane. Glyn he's doing a fine job of actually keeping that lead with or without the help of the pit stops. Trouble, the 69 car, now it gets away.
That'll be the 10 seconds extra, isn't it, that they have to wait, and it must seem like an age, that, Joe. You've got the pit stop done, there's nothing else to do to the car, you're ready and waiting to go, and you just won't watching that stopwatch.
Yeah, to find 10 seconds out on track is almost impossible to find, so that is super difficult. I think there was pushed back into the pit lane a little bit early. The rule should be push back and go. I think they didn't affect anyone, so it'd be a shame if they got a penalty for that. But here at Snetterton, the pit lane being so small, too small, we have cars that don't even have garages. Have to come in at 45 degrees is obviously a difficult position to get the car back into the pit lane safely, and it does seem from the outside a lot better with having a split pit window. When we'd have GT3s, GT4s all at once, a safety car comes out, you're kind of fearing for your shins getting taken out by a splitter of a car at most of the stops.
Fabulous looking thing, the Gen 2 Bentley Continental, world's first 200-mile-an-hour country house.
This is for position here,
This is fantastic. The 9 and the 72 side by side, or say side by side, door in door, if anything there.
I reckon this is going to work out for about second place, isn't it, after the pit stops, because the number 9 car, which was being driven by Tom Gamble, it now has Jack Mitchell at the wheel, was running in second position before the stops, but it's under all sorts of pressure now from car number 72, Phil Keane, who is on a bit of a charge here. He looks to the inside line. He, remember, is a pro driver. It's another silver-graded driver in Jack Mitchell that's at the wheel of the BMW, and right behind them, Bradley Ellis has taken over another one of the silver cars. That's the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin, which has lost a position, therefore, to the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. This is the car that was leading the race. Now, where does that come out in relation to this trio of cars coming across the start-finish line? The BMW was second position before the pit stops. Is it still going to be second place after? It's going to be mighty close. I think the BMW might go through. Yes, it will. It was not a brilliant stop there from the Team Park Racing squad, and they will lose not 1, not 2, but 3 positions. So the number 7 Bentley, it didn't have any extra seconds to serve in the pit lane either, so that's bizarre, but it has cost them an awful lot of ground. BMW and Century Motorsport now then the leading car that has pitted, but receives a bit of a tag in the tail from Phil Keane, who wants to get on with this.
That's a couple of tags in the tail from Phil Keane.
Yeah, you don't need to flash your headlights with intent there to show what you want to do. I think Phil's giving him the love tap and then a French kiss on the second go of it as well. So looks like Jack is pretty determined to keep his elbows out, even though there's 31 minutes left. It's going to be a long old stint for him, but then perversely for Keane, it's going to feel like a very quick stint. Every lap he can't get past, and it's difficult for Phil because Yeah, that was a good old twitch. The BMW is so strong at the end of the straight, and that's where you overtake. It doesn't really matter if you're quicker in the corner if there's a slow car in front of you, because you can't do much about overtaking in the corner. So Phil's really just going to have to keep pressurising him and hope he gets a bad exit onto one of the long straights and the top speed's negated.
And of course, Phil Keane also very, very well aware that he's got Bradley Ellis snapping at his heels. The Aston Martin 2 performs differently to his Lamborghini. He wants to show where his car is the strongest, and at that point needs to make the move. There is going to be no respite for the remaining 31 minutes now. We've got a 4-car train for the lead of this race.
Yeah, this is fantastic stuff, isn't it? And 4 different manufacturers as well as they turn their way through corner. The GT4 pit lane window, by the way, has just opened. Therefore, we have GT4 cars in the pit lane, suitably enough. This is the number 20 Bulk Motorsport car. Graham Johnson handing over to Michael O'Brien. The Beachdee machine is in as well. I think it's Kelvin Fletcher who is doing the second stint in that one. Race leaders, though, across the start-finish line, they go. And it is going to be Jack Mitchell that leads them down towards turn 1, or is it Phil Keane having a look to the inside? Can't quite do it. Ryan Ratcliffe, though, in 4th place, is looking like he's closing in as well. The Bulk car, so GT4 didn't escape the fisticuffs in the early stages either, did they? A bit of damage there on the Bulk car. This is sensational racing, though, isn't it? And Joe, this is a difficult position for Phil Keane to be in. He wants to attack, he wants to get into the race lead, but again, he's so precariously placed, he could end up losing ground.
Yeah, and as I said, BMW struggles for traction, but as soon as it gets like 3rd gear range, it seems superior. I think Phil's best chance is actually here into turn 4, not this lap, but he's got such a... Oh, Brad's had a good look as well there. So, as you said earlier, Phil's in the difficult position of in the middle. You want to get past, but also if he loses a position to Brad, he's even further away from where he wanted to be.
But while this is happening, that 4-car train has become a 5-car train, but it's catching the Bentley now as in comes the GT4 leader, Richard Williams, after a fabulous stint to lead the race almost from the start. The 29 Audi, Scott Maxwell pulls aside, but no, Rob Bell has caught Ryan Ratcliffe now, and that's now a battle for 4th place behind this battle for 1st.
Not a bad debut in the championship for the new McLaren, is it? This is in 5th position and right in the thick of the battle. We've got Jonny Adam in the 47 Aston Martin, only a second and a half further back as well. We're going to have the entire GT3 field together here, I think, fighting for the lead before too much longer. And this is why Phil Keane has really got the hurry up here. He wants to get through and get clear of this melee. The bomb hole, though, is not an overtaking opportunity, so he ducks back in line. The tight line in, though, means he's a bit slow off the corner, and Bradley Ellis, with his headlights ablaze, is ready to apply for pressure. Look at this. This is fantastic stuff. And Phil Keane with a big twitch as he comes through the right-hander at core. And that Lamborghini, usually so poised and well-balanced, that shows how hard he's pushing.
Oh, we talked earlier in the race about the balance of performance. Working pretty well here. 5 very, very different cars in the top 5. Car 96, though, is going to get a stop-and-go penalty. That's bad, bad news for Bradley Ellis.
Yeah, 3rd place, but they won't be after that. They'll have to come into the pit lane, stop for a second, and then go. The change for the race lead. Phil Keane has got through. There was a mistake there, I think, or is there an issue? Oh, there's an issue. What a shame that is for Jack Mitchell. Is that
the tyres look okay. It looks maybe like a steering arm or something even bigger than that, because that has got no power or no direction change from him. That's a big shame for him personally, but I think that's going to open up this GT3 battle now. It's going to be interesting to see who's in the wrong position.
It just stopped, didn't it? It was out of the corner.
Or anything. Very strange.
That is bizarre indeed, and well, this is one of the things, of course, with these new cars. There's certain early season gremlins potentially. Now remember that that was the race leader in GT4 leading the pit lane. That was the Audi, but the Mustang, because it's a silver car, in GT4 they have to serve an extra, I think it's 15 seconds, isn't it, in the pit lane, as well as carrying extra ballast as well. In GT3 they just give them the ballast. There's no extra pit stop time to be served.
Which is interesting, because I thought the gap between Ballon and Wilkinson was very similar to when Ellis and Keane left. So it shows you how close that too short a pit stop must have been for Ellis and Optimum, because obviously Ballon and Keane haven't had a penalty, so it must have been tenths of a second.
That has all the hallmarks of something electrical, doesn't it? Because there's no smoke, there's no damage, there's nothing falling off the car. It just stopped going, and that is going to be concerning for them, because if it is an electrical problem, then the
lights off.
He's doing a master reset, so he'll be in contact with the engineer, who will have basically the crisis sheet that BMW produce on what to do with what problems.
And he picks up momentum again immediately. In comes Bradley Ellis for that penalty.
Yes, which means that Phil Keane now leads the race, and I reckon Ryan Ratcliffe's second. Yes, he is. So Ryan Ratcliffe in the number 7 Bentley is starting to creep back into this, and so too Seb Morris just behind Jonny Adam there. So Jonny Adam is 4th position in the 47 Aston Martin, and Seb Morris in the car that was started by Rick Harvey from towards the back of the GT3 grid is slowly but surely putting itself back into contention as well. The winners, remember, of the season opener at Alton Park, and then Rick was in a similar sort of position to that of Seb Morris now. He was inside the top 5 after a late safety car restart and had a spin of the British chicane which put him in the barriers. Despite that though, it was a positive start to the season for the JRM squad. They certainly had the better weekend than the Team Park, for example.
Fastest lap of the race goes to Phil Keane. That's him around a 1:49.151. All of a sudden, we've got Rob Bell again more urgently looking now for a way past the Bentley that puts a rear wheel in the dirt there just briefly. 22 car looking racy, but he needs to, because right behind him he's got Jonny Adam.
And they can all, of course, see Phil Keane escaping, can't they, Joe? And that will mean that they want to get on with this and go after him.
Yeah, Bell's in a similar position to what Keane was a few laps ago. Instead of it being Mitchell, it's now Ratcliffe in the Bentley, with that extra weight for being a silver, which really hampers the car. And Rob's got to try and get past as quickly as possible, because otherwise Jonny Adam and Seb Morris won't have much patience with him and will want to take his position from him.
Jack Mitchell, by the way, after that reset, is back up to speed, it seems, certainly for the moment. So absolutely spot on there, Joe Osborne. That was a full reset and back into the fray. GT4, meanwhile, getting back into the stride for those cars.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the leading few cars to complete their pit stops, and therefore for the timing screen to update. But we are riding on board here with Seb Prio, son of 3-time World Touring Car champion Andy, and as they drop down into the braking zone at Wilson, he's got that's the customer car, isn't he? That's the other Ford Mustang in front, which has been taken over by Aaron Taylor-Smith, another former British Touring Car star. There's the second Multimatic machine serving its pit stop.
Remember, this is the one that had the problem with the puncture earlier.
It is.
So we'll be further back down. That's it's Ben Devlin, I think, going to be in that car, isn't it? Second stint. If ever there was a driver that knows this place well, it's going to be Ben.
Yes, indeed, and let's see what they can salvage from this race then now, I guess. Traffic of the GT4 variety here for our GT3 second place battle, and Ryan Ratcliffe hanging on well here, hasn't yet made a mistake, and he is a driver that we saw made that mistake at Alton Park when he maybe had a chance to fight for the race lead in the early stages, but here this weekend it's been a much more assured performance so far, and under intense pressure. It's so difficult to explain, isn't it, Joe, just how difficult this is for a driver. Not only is he trying to fend off some of the world's best GT racers, but he's also trying to pick his way through the slower traffic as well.
Yeah, it's really where it starts to push your mental capacity, and Ryan, who is a brilliant driver, but he's not doing this as much as the guys behind him, so he doesn't get the opportunity to be in a race car 2 or 3 days a week like the guys behind him, and that makes it difficult. It's no different to exercising your muscles. Your brain is one, and if you're not doing something as much, it is more difficult to keep that concentration level up, and as you alluded to, the pressure is immense, and like we said, you just got to keep your eyes forward, do your own thing, check your mirror once in a while just to make sure that they're not gaining massively at one corner, and you can maybe think about changing something there to stop that hurting you as much. But he's doing an absolutely perfect job so far.
Fantastic 4-car battle still there for second. Being back, by the way, up through the field and making time, 2 of the Aston Martin Racing factory drivers. Nicky Team now back up into 9th position, a couple of positions back. Marco Sorensen there in the number 2 and the number 99 Aston Martins respectively, but the action really is right here. It's about whether or not Rob Bell in this debuting, remember, McLaren 720S GT3. Problems meant the team did not get the car out to race at Alton Park, but challenging with the Team Parker Bentley for second position, and can he do something when they're in traffic here?
Well, they're working their way past some GT4 traffic. The GT4 category, though, was being led before the pit stop by the new to the championship Audi R8 LMS. Richard Williams was at the wheel for the first stint, and now he's down in the pit lane with Andy.
Yes, he certainly is, able to answer some questions about, we were all wondering how the R8 would fare in British GT, and Richard, if that's anything to go by, very, very well indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it was a complete journey into the unknown for us, really. I mean, that car was, box fresh, picked up kind of 10 days ago, and we just didn't know what we were going to be in for there. I was obviously after qualifying yesterday, and we knew we were in a good position to be able to capitalise on that, and it was a relatively clean start, and I got a bit lucky with a few incidents up ahead, and got into the lead, and then it was about just driving consistently and just seeing where we were, because we just genuinely didn't know where we were going to end up there. So very pleasantly surprised, I have to say.
I mean, it's delightful to watch. Of course, you do realise you've now put a target on your back, don't you?
I don't mind that. I'm happy to be in that position, to be perfectly honest. But I mean, just being here and and being at Snetterton particularly, it's always been a kind place for me, and fingers crossed then it can bring it home.
Good luck. We'll enjoy watching the rest of the race. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Well, there we go. Let's see whether or not they can hang on now. The 29 car being driven by Snetterton Fielding now in this second stint is still a fairly comfortable class leader. They've got about a 13-second advantage over former Renault UK Clio Cup star James Dorlin in the number 4 Tolman car, which is second. And Michael Broadhurst in that number 77 Mercedes is being classified third at the moment in GT4. They did this in all part, didn't they? They sort of came out of nowhere after the pit stops. Remember that because over half of the GT4 field are silver cars, that means that the Pro-Am cars really do gain an awful lot in the pit stops, because those silver cars have the extra 15 seconds that they will serve in the pit lane. And so the 77 Fox Motorsport Mercedes of Michael Broadhurst and Mark Murfitt, they have gained an awful lot of ground through this pit stop window. Well, there is the gap between the top two in GT4. That's James Dorlin in the number 4 car, and there, the black and green car behind, is Michael Broadhurst in the Mercedes. Then it is number 58 next in line, so that's actually going to be the first of the 2 HHC cars, isn't it?
Yeah, and after that, it starts to get very tight indeed. 3, 4, 5 cars in contention for that position.
57 have lost out as well, haven't they? Sorry, Graham. They didn't have any pit stop penalty to serve, and yet they've lost about 4 spots.
Coming through that is the leader, Phil Keane, and his teammate back in the 69 car, Jonny has moved up to 6th, ahead of Adam Wilcox. The battle of the Lamborghini Huracans in the midfield in GT3 has been settled by way of Jonny Cocker for the moment. Phil Keane, though, does very well to get cleanly through that gaggle of GT4 cars, and he will maintain a very hefty advantage.
Yeah, the 66 car in there as well with Scott Mulvin, who's having a decent run. He is currently 18th place overall, which works out at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th place in GT4. This is all the battle then for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th in GT4, and another Stocko penalty, Graham.
Yeah, that's going to go the way of the number 19 car. That's Ben Devlin, I'm afraid, in the second, the Multimatic Mustangs. It's not going to affect the result terribly much, because of course they had that issue with the puncture earlier, but it's going to be 11-second stop go for Ben, who's just left the pit lane after after taking a car over.
42 there, Jacob Mathiasen in the surviving GT4 Century Motorsport BMW. He's running inside the top 10 in class as well, as we are on board now with Jonny Adam, 4th position outright. When he came across the start-finish line, he was 28 1/1000ths of a second behind Rob Bell. I think they may have been side by side into the first corner, but the McLaren has held on to the position. This is allowing, though, Ryan Ratcliffe a bit of breathing room, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, exactly, and that gives you that little bit of a breather you need mentally, just to relax, make sure your hands aren't too tense, take a couple of deep breaths and refocus your mind, and kind of looking to how long's left. I like to work out how many laps are left and kind of get a feel for how the car is handling brakes and tyres. Can I push it 100%, or do I need to bring it back and look after the car and make sure the tyres don't fall off performance-wise as the Invictus Jag goes back into the garage with a problem.
Yeah, bad news for them after a strong showing at Ilton Park. So the, well, dirty-sounding Jaguar, I'm afraid, put back in its box for now.
A very clean-looking machine, though, isn't it? And it had a 6th and a 3rd place finish at Alton Park last time out. Their first ever outright GT4 class podium it was. Sadly not repeating that here today. There's Phil Keane, race leader then, comes across the start-finish line. Car number 72 leading the way. It has been a great stint so far for Phil, but before that it was Adam Ballon that kept the car in the mix at the front of the field, and Andy is down in the pit lane with him to get some of his thoughts. What was a busy opening stint?
Yes, I certainly am. Adam, all you want right now is a boring race, don't you? Because Phil has done what he needs to do, got it exactly where you want it.
Absolutely, a really tedious race, nothing to see here, just finish it off.
Are you mindful of the fact that Phil is the most successful British GT driver around Snetterton?
He's fantastic. Look, he's a fantastic driver around anywhere, so I'm just keeping fingers crossed nothing goes wrong.
How did it feel for you? I mean, it was... I'm telling this an incident, so we'll have to go back to comms. Sorry, Adam, apologies.
Yeah, we unfortunately have got Rob Bell off the road with, I think, a right rear puncture, which we are assuming came from a fairly hefty whack down at the first corner at Riches. Rob Bell from 3rd position. That is devastating news for the Barwell Motorsport squad, who were so close to that fairy tale result, weren't they, Graham? Sadly, not to be.
Well, let's watch again here what happens. There is the McLaren to the outside. It was contact with another McLaren, unfortunately, the HHC cars, the 58 car. That's caused an immediate right rear puncture. And actually, Rob's lucky at that point that he wasn't starting to actually damage the rear bodywork, because he's been very careful. He clearly saw that. That's just really unfortunate.
That looked to me, Joe, as though Rob didn't realise that Seb Morris was up the inside of the other McLaren, and therefore there wasn't really as much room as he was hoping.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see the replay from earlier, because it looked like Adam was already in front of Rob into turn 1, and obviously that had been a change of position and all that traffic. I just wonder if Rob had been held back down the straight. For me, it was a racing incident. It wasn't anyone's fault. I can see why Seb put the car there down on the inside. Yeah, so he's had to check up, and then obviously Johnny's got the run, but then Seb's got the same momentum over Rob, but also the GT4 car, and it's 3 into 1.
Great pickup. Basically, Rob just chose the wrong line through, didn't he? It dealt with the first of those the McLaren GT4 cars. Don't think realised his way was blocked by the second one.
Yeah, I think it's a tendency even here at Snetterton. We hug the pit wall over the pit straight.
Oh, so it's contact there with the pit straight as the WPI car comes past. Just takes the nose of the second valve car.
So, sorry, I said we tend to sit next to the pit wall for an aero benefit, as we see Rob have to stop the car. So he's done everything he can. He's gone as slowly as possible. The tyre didn't look like it was doing any more damage. The problem he'll be thinking now is, I've got another race in a few hours. If I need another 30 minutes to fix it, I need to get it back. But it looks like Balfe have made the call to park the car.
I think that's right. That's team manager David Balfe, just putting the headset on there, and sitting next to him on the left of our picture. That's Lee Penn, the race engineer, looking very serious faced there, and they would have told him this not worth the risk at this point. You're exactly right, Joe.
Well,
it's difficult for Rob. As I said, I think he's had to go left of the GT4 cars because they naturally stay right, and then as they moved over the racing line, his gap that he saw is just gone, and then it's all concertinaed up. And I hope it's looked at a racing incident, because I wouldn't like to point any blame at anyone there in that instance.
Yeah, certainly no malice involved. Just 3 into 1 wouldn't go really, and well, what a shame. That was looking like being a brilliant result for them. The good news, Graham, though, the car is quick. If they get it fixed,
absolutely,
back in the mix again.
It's been a very encouraging start to the race meeting for Balfe Motorsport. Saying it's 3 into 1. The problem was it was 5 into 1, because it was the other two cars on the inside that made that all kind of concertina out in the wrong part of the track for Rob.
Yeah, I've never been very good at mathematics, so apologies on that.
We'll take your word for that one, Graham. So, Phil Keane then, with this enormous lead now over what is still a fairly tight battle for second place, because Ryan Ratcliffe may have lost the McLaren through his wing mirrors, but he's gained a Jonny Adam, and that is probably not good news for Ryan Ratcliffe, is it?
Well, that's the second place battle. Behind them, you can just see the rear of the Audi there. That's the GT4 leader. That gap is coming down a little, under 12 seconds now, but still a big gap for the GT4 guys. This, though, is the major battle on track. Second place overall, Ryan Ratcliffe trying to hold off Jonny Adam, with Seb Morris right in their wing mirrors as well.
I don't know if Seb's maybe got a little bit of damage on that contact, because he looked like he was the fastest of that group, and now it looks like he's just struggling to hang on the back of it. And the Bentley's obviously a massively aerodynamic car. You can see the front end, all the turning vanes, and if he's just lost maybe a couple of dive planes on his front left corner, maybe suffering with understeer, which then in turn hurts the tyre even more. So I might be wrong, he might get on the back of these guys again, but he just seems to be a little bit off the pace of what he was at the start of this stint.
Yeah, he'll be spurred on, won't he, though, by seeing this battle that's developing in front between Ryan and Jonny. Jonny Adam looking for a decent result here for TF Sport after they had that really, by their standards, disastrous Alton Park. The number 47 car had a best finish of 7th in race 1, and let's not talk about what happened to the number 2 car. They really had a day to forget.
Also behind this battle, cracking battle for 7th position now, Nicky Team right with Bradley Ellis. So Optimum Motorsport, Aston Martin fending off a TF car. That is around a second last time through, but Nicky Team taking 10ths out in every single sector. On board now, though, the 47 car of Jonny Adam. doing what he can. It's a great example here of the difference in performance, where the performance comes, different parts of the track for these two packages. The huge Bentley ahead, but very, very quick in a straight line. They're rather more wheeled the Aston Martin, but then behind Seb Morris. Well, he's got his second win here, I think. Getting back with that battle.
Yeah.
I think you're right though, Joe. I think he did just drop back a bit, didn't he?
Yeah, it might even be intentional that you need a bit of clear air, keep the temps cool, and sometimes you find it easier when you're the momentum car. If you catch them and pass them straight away, it's okay. If you get stuck in a battle doing the same pace as the guy in front, you suddenly lose that impetus you had to get past him, and it's sometimes difficult. Seb's got no one behind him relatively, so he has got that benefit where he might have just said, you know what, I'm going to take 2 laps, cool everything down, bring the tyres down a bit, and then I'm going to really push on.
And now looking really racy, but so too is Jonny Adam. He's looking for a way past Brian Ratcliffe, but which is going to come out to the fore from these three. 2 Bentleys and Aston Martin walked into a bar. There's a punchline somewhere.
This is the chance, I think, is it? No, not quite enough traction up the inside there, but Brian Ratcliffe not making friends with the apex at Oggies, now through Williams, and then the Bentley takes off. Look at that acceleration out of the corner, and I mean, from this onboard camera, it looks like the Bentley's got an enormous advantage, but as we've seen on other areas of the circuit, the Aston Martin is stronger. Oh, Seb Morris trying to take advantage of that Bentley grunt to get alongside Jonny Adam into Brundle, wasn't quite close enough, and now we're into the part of the circuit that should suit the Aston Martin.
But that's the point, isn't it? We saw what Ryan Ratcliffe was doing in front of Jonny Adam. Clearly, Seb Morris is doing exactly the same behind, and that means that Johnny's having to be, well, he's going to, between attack and defence, it's an awful place for him to be right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be enjoying this drink he's having with the Bentley guys, to be honest, because he's having to buy the drinks, and he's getting them thrown back in his face, it feels like. So I think he's just going to have to hope that Ryan makes a little mistake like he did at Oggies, and he can then get the traction. But that Bentley, it certainly has got a good amount of boost coming out of these straights. And feels like you're in a GT4 Aston on board watching that come out of some of the corners. It's a huge amount of performance. I think Seb's trying to unnerve Jonny Adam, which I pay a lot of money to see if Johnny fold under the pressure with his vast experience and his mental well-being.
Absolutely. Full factory drive for Aston Martin, Le Mans winner for Aston Martin, vastly experienced and with record-breaking experience in the British GT Championship. Great battle meanwhile between Mustang and McLaren.
Mustang's a lap down as well, so he gets out of the way nicely, and that's really good by Devlin not getting in the way. I just noticed that Collard in the 5 car and Mulvern in the Mercedes both have damage on the front. I don't think it's from an incident together, but it potentially looks like the bodywork could come up on both of them. The McLaren's a bit further back, and the arch or the bonnet of the Mercedes is trapping the air. And I've had it before where you've had a damaged front end and the bonnet pins give up and the bonnet comes over the windscreen, and it is one of the biggest shocks you'll ever receive in your life. And I couldn't play Pop-Up Pirate as a kid because I didn't like the suspense, so hopefully they stay stuck down and they don't come up, but there's definitely a bit of damage on both of those cars.
Well, this is the fight for 4th position in GT4. Jordan Collard has it, but Scott Mulvern wants it and is almost within range of taking. In fact, I think they're catching some of the cars in front potentially as well. Yes, Michael Broadhurst on the previous lap, they were 4 tenths quicker than, and they're only how far behind? 1.2 seconds back at the start of the lap. The number 3 Century Motorsport BMW putting a lap on them after their issues earlier on there. Ben Green down in 9th position in GT3, and will now put another lap on the number 19 Ford Mustang. It's developing quite nicely here into a battle for the bottom step of the podium. Sadly, not a part of this after their issues earlier on the Invictus Racing Jaguar. Hope to see more of them a little bit later on.
Yeah, it looks like Broadhurst is really struggling now with performance in that car, because they're really reeling them in, and I think we're probably going to get at least 3 laps, maybe 4 racing laps from these GT4 guys, and I think, as you quite rightly said, this GT4 podium is going to get pretty tasty quite quickly.
Isn't it just here? Meanwhile, 3-car battle now. This is Bradley Ellis and Nicky Team catching Adam Wilcox for 6th position. This is the newly introduced, the newest of the 3 Hurricanes we've got here. The number 18 car with a 96 and the 2. We've been watching Nicky Team catching Bradley Ellis. Brad's been doing a great job to fend that off. And it's, well, as you were further up the field. So 2 3-car battles for significant positions in this race. With what, just over 7 minutes to go. It's been all action, hasn't it?
Now, Seb Morris is right behind Jonny Adam coming onto this Bentley straight. We know that the Bentley, appropriately enough, is very strong at this part of the circuit. Will this be Seb's opportunity to attack? Let's see. He's in the slipstream, the big Bentley towering over the Aston Martin. He can't draw alongside though, can he? So maybe that's the slipstream that Jonny's getting that's helping him out a bit, but it's not a huge deficit he's got there.
Running out of time to do it, but now catching them again is Jonny Cocker. Jonny Cocker in 5th place with over a second quicker last time around than the trio ahead. So if Jonny Cocker can get in amongst this, that changes the dynamic again.
And Jonny has taken him, remember he had that 10-second extra pit stop penalty. He was in front of these cars, or in front of 2 of these cars at least before the pit stops. So he's done a really great job to overhaul the vast majority of that deficit. And yeah, we'll see what that gap is as they come across the start-finish line this time. Phil Keen's advantage is 13.8 seconds over this scrap. Then Ratcliffe, Adam and Morris separated by less than a second, the 3 of them. And Jonny Cocker 1.7 seconds back. But on the previous lap, look at the time that he took out of them. Cocker did a 1:49.9. He's by far the fastest driver on the track. Compare that to the low 1:52s that the cars in front of him are doing. He's going to be there within a lap or so.
Absolutely. It's all about the fact they're having to attack and defend ahead. Jonny Cocker, meanwhile, has just got to focus on the 3 cars ahead of him. He's doing that masterfully well, and it is going to be a 4-car battle before very much longer. There is Jonny Cocker just behind the Cayman.
Is actually the slowest sort of defensive driver Ryan's had to adopt here as well. He's stopping it in the corner so Jonny can't get a run, and then it's faster at the end of the straight, whereas the other way, if you're defending at the end of the straight, closing the door, you sometimes don't really lose that much time, so it's going to be difficult for them not to get caught by Jonny, who's on cue, only about 5 minutes off the back of Morris now.
Well, we're seeing one Aston Martin running strongly here in the podium battle in the hands of Jonny Adam. One Aston Martin in GT3 that's not had a day through ever so far, though, is the Beach D car. Marco Sorensen is in it now, but perhaps Andrew Howard can shed some light on just why they're having such a difficult day.
Yeah, Andrew, they've just been saying, you know, Aston's usually pretty good around here. For some reason, we know that you and Marco are great racers. So is there something going on with the car?
Well, mine was, there was quite a lot of contact first corner, and then big contact in front of me second corner, windscreen filled with oil, which is never a good sign. So the car just went round on me, and then it took 2 or 3 laps to get it clean. Then you're behind the GT4s, etc., etc. But once we got going, lap times were okay. I think, without being too political, I think when you watch the Astons coming off first phase acceleration, coming off some of the corners, you'll see we just haven't got that low down grunt at the moment. And you know, they've always bopped the championship well, so we'll leave it to them and they'll do a good job. But at the moment, we're just struggling on that.
You're going to make any setup changes in the break?
Yeah, well, the setup is don't get behind the whole GT4 field. No, I think the car is a pretty good race car, if I'm honest. You know, there's an ultimate pace you get to, and that's it. And I think it's showing with the pros now that, you know, new car, it's got to be balanced, and we'll see what happens. But no real change. You just try and stay on the track.
Sounds like a sensible idea. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. So there is the Beach Team car then. They're running down in 10th place in GT3 at the moment, so they will score a point, but that's about it, unfortunately. And it's all about recovering now in race 2, if at all possible. Check back in here with some of the GT4 battling. We've now had that pit stop penalty served by Scott Mulvin, so he has dropped down the order out of a podium battle. In fact, there he is. We've just got a glimpse of him in the red and black Mercedes just ahead of this group. That's the KTM Crossbow of Sean Cooper throwing up, I think, on some marbles, wasn't it? The discarded rubber at corner, which is a tyre-punishing corner at the best of times. There's Scott Mulvin back out, so what positions he sort of come out in? He's 5th of the Pro-Am cars in GT4, but he is about 11th outright, I reckon, in the class.
Just looking at as we're looking at the GT4 cars on track here, top 8 overall, 5 gaps to the top 8, under a second. It is really, really close for very significant positions. Here's 4 of them. Astounding stuff from these guys. It's great to see. I'm sure not from Andrew Howard's perspective, great to see the difference in the way that they produce remarkably similar lap times with just 2.5 minutes left of this 60 minutes float by.
Yeah, it's been all action, hasn't it? The good news is we get to do this all over again this afternoon in race 2. Race 1 not finished with yet though, and nor is Jonny Adam. He's got, he would hope, a few extra tools in his toolbox that he can throw at Ryan Ratcliffe in the Bentley. The race leader Phil Keane is coming past some of the top 10 runners in GT4 for the final time, and then he'll have to put a lap on them. This will be the penultimate lap of the race, I reckon though, so he no doubt will have a bit more traffic to deal with before the checkered flag flies. There is the number 58 McLaren that is running in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th position outright in GT4. See some of the stragglers in the GT4 category coming through. Before much longer we'll see that green Lamborghini. There it is, Phil Keane emerging into our sight, the race leader outright. It's looking like a fairly comfortable margin for him. The question is, who will be joining him on the podium? We've had the change there. That's Seb Morris at the inside of Jonny Adam. Jonny will try and fight back going on to the Bentley straight, but he surely won't have the ponies in a straight line. Well, he's keeping up, but he's actually pulling back alongside here. Wheel to wheel for third position then. Jonny Adam has the outside line for Brundle. That will be the inside line for Nelson, but Seb Morris says not on your life, and almost has a go at getting past the Team Parker example in front. Well, we didn't see how that started, but we sort of sensed, didn't we, Joe, that it would require a mistake or a hold-up of some sort for any of the positions to change, and that seems to be what's happened.
Yeah, it looked like the move was well and truly done, so I don't know if it's something out of Oggies or a problem onto the back straight, but I was actually surprised how good the Aston was in a straight line there, so I wonder if they've managed to... Here we go. So Ratcliffe has got the brakes a little early, and Johnny's had nowhere to go. I don't think Jonny wants to be on the outside, but it was either that or hit Ratcliffe, and Ryan's put his elbows out. For me, it's fair enough. He's just enough in front to dictate where he can put the car, and Jonny has to unfortunately go on the grass. But I don't think Jonny looked to the outside. I think Ryan broke a bit earlier than expected, and it was either outside or in his rear bumper. So that was unfortunate for Jonny, and gives Seb one lap to give it a go. Both the same cars. Obviously, Ryan's carrying a bit of weight for the silver penalty. So I'd say, big moment there. Just going to give Jonny a chance now into the hairpin.
Well, this is fascinating stuff, isn't it? And full marks to Seb Morris there for being having the self-awareness there to sort of go for that gap as soon as it presented itself. We are, though, on the final lap of the race. Unfortunately, it's one of those races you don't really want to end. Phil Keane will be quite grateful to see the checkered flag, but so too, I think, with Seb Morris, who's now under pressure again from Jonny Adam. There's contact between the two of them. Jonny Adam gets sideways, and here comes Johnny Cocker. Around the outside, he's gone through. Fantastic stuff. Johnny Cocker takes full advantage.
I think Johnny's going to get the position back off Cocker. That was a big old snap from Jonny there around Hamilton, and Jonny was particularly fair on Morris. I think if I was Jonny, I would have had Seb on the grass and in a different postcode there, but he gave him plenty of racing room. Looks like Cocker's got the slipstream. Jonny just about got it on the brakes, so I think that's probably it for these positions unless there's a mistake. I think in GT4 as well, we've seen Collard go past Broadhurst for third overall as well, so that's good for Jordan there. It's a good stint from him.
Phil Keane then, out of the final corner, is going to take his first victory of the season. They've had a second, a fourth, and now a win here at Snetterton. For Phil Keane and Adam Ballon, Barwell Motorsport have won 2 of the first 3 races of the season. There's big damage on the front now, though, of the JRM Bentley, and Seb Morris is going to lose 2 places on the run to the line.
Can't see.
What has happened in the final corner there? There must have been contact somewhere. That means that Ratcliffe is second, Adam is third, and Johnny Cocker fourth, and Barwell are elated with that. Johnny Cocker getting up an extra position at the flag, and Seb Morris drops off the podium. You made the point there, Graham. I don't think you could see where he was going.
What you said about the bonnet popping up.
Yeah, there's his pop-up pirate moment.
There you go. That's Joe Osborne's first experience of the commentator's curse.
I wonder where the contact come from. I'd be interested to see the back of Ratcliffe's car. That would be the logical explanation.
Lead gap, by the way, in GT4, managed I'm sure by Senna Fielding, has come right down to around 5 seconds when they crossed the line last time around, but I think he's going to be able to control that for a stellar return performance from in the Audi GT4. Big damage to the front of that JRM Bentley, but the 29 car, peerless here.
Looks really well balanced through a corner that really loads the car. It's got a little bit of body rolling, but that helps load the slide. You need the grip anyway, and out of traction every time I've seen it. It's not leaving a big set of 11s or anything, so they've obviously got the traction pretty much sorted, crushing his headlights, and I'm sure it's been a big win for that team. They've had their troubles with the Toyota they've been campaigning for the last few years that I've raced against anyway.
Yeah, the Audi R8 LMS GT4 has had success across Europe in GT4 racing, and now it wins in its first appearance in British GT. In second place will be the number 4 Tolman McLaren. That's another solid result for them, which they really needed, actually. They were 6th in the points. They had a podium in the first race at Alton Park, another one here in race 1 at Snetterton. Number 58 battling away here. That is for about 7th position-ish in GT4. And the battles continue right to the line. Phil Keane, though, managed to escape all of the drama, and what drama there was behind him. What goes on here then? So the Bentleys aren't that close together coming out of the right-hander at Nelson, but there is some traffic up the road which delays Ryan Ratcliffe. He has a big moment, and then Joe, it's on from there.
Hit the back of the Aston.
Yeah, so the Aston GT4 I think probably does what it has to do and get out the throttle and even brake so Ratcliffe doesn't come across the front of it. And Morris, I would say, has probably gambled on that not happening and hoping the Aston actually goes down the inside and he can follow the momentum. And I think it was just it concertinaed up very quickly, and the Aston was probably going 20-30 k's slower than it would on a normal lap into Coram.
Well, effectively, he played the same gamble that got in the place against Jonny Adam earlier. It didn't pay off this time.
No, exactly, and it's those split-second decisions that can make all the difference, aren't they? So Adam Ballon and Phil Keane are your third different race winners in GT3 from the first 3 races of the season. Glengetty and Ryan Ratcliffe are second, whilst Graham Davidson and Jonny Adam salvage a podium place after what was a frantic race for them as well. Sam Haan and Johnny Cocker fourth. Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris did limp across the line, but down in 5th place. They lost their second podium finish of the season. Mike Ligo and Adam Wilcox, full credit to them as well. Their debut in the GT3 category for WBI Motorsport, and they are 6th place overall. Optimum a 7th, TF Sports number 2 car is 8th. Century Motorsport, a race that promised much for the Century GT3 cars, unfortunately delivers relatively little. Sennett Fielding, as we said, and Richard Williams win in the number 29 GT4 Audi. They win GT4. They're also a Pro-Am duo as well, and that is the first Pro-Am car that has won outright in British GT4 this season so far. Great result for them. Second place in the GT4 category goes to the number 4 Tolman Motorsport McLaren, and the number 5 example from Tolman is third. So Tolman have 2 cars on the podium in GT4. And breathe, everybody. That was a fantastic race. Phil Keane looking remarkably calm because he missed out on most of the drama there, didn't he? He managed to escape the chaos behind and takes a fairly comfortable victory, Andy.
Phil, I said to you beforehand, you've got the best record in British GT history at Snetterton, and you were kind of a bit blasé about it. Proved it once again.
Well, I think the team and my teammates did a great job today, and that's half the battle, isn't it? So, Adam drove really well, had a bit of a bad start, but made up for lost time, and we had a good pit stop. The guys, I've got a good car, so makes my life easier.
It was all kicking off behind you. How much were you aware of that, and how much were you thinking just stay in front and keep it clean? Yeah, that was all we did really. Just drove around sensible pace and just look after the car for the next race and monitor the gap. So it was good. The Iceman reputation continues, buddy. Congratulations, mate. Well done. Happy days. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Well, Phil Keane rarely is an excitable chap, is Phil. He's a very quick driver, but very laid back indeed. And that was a brilliant performance. Barwell are looking strong this year, aren't they? They had that victory for the 69 car at Alton Park. This is the second visit to the podium now for 72. The Lamborghini, to my untrained eye, seems to be, of the new generation cars, the most similar to its predecessor. Do you think that's got anything to do with the way in which they've really hit the ground running this season? Yeah, 100%. I think the clue's in the title of the car. It's a Lamborghini Huracan Evo. So that's had an evolution, whereas the other cars are all revolution. Brand new car for Bentley, for Aston Martin, for us at McLaren. So they've probably taken over 70-80% of what they knew from the old car into this new one, so they're tweaking and fine-tuning, whereas the other guys are really struggling to maybe get on top of every aspect of the car. And when the racing's this close, it only takes one setting to be slightly off, and it looks like the Lambo's got the big advantage over everyone at the moment. Well, speaking of big advantages, at one point about 13 seconds clear of the rest of the GT4 field was the Stellar Motorsport Audi R8 LMS GT4. They take the victory in their first appearance in the championship.
You have just said to me, well, that was fun. You absolutely dominated that.
Yeah, to be fair, all the hard work was done by Richard, my co-driver. He did an absolutely amazing first stint, so big hats off to him. But no, I just honestly, the team deserve this win. They've been working hard, so hard back at base, and to to come here, debut for the Audi. It shows it's a brilliant car straight out of the box, and get a first win. It's absolutely unbelievable. So yeah, really over the moon with that.
So now all eyes are on you for the next race.
Yes,
Happy
definitely.
days.
It looks like I've got to do the hard stint in this next one. It's going to be difficult, but the same again. We've just got to go out there, enjoy it, and aim for the best. You never know what's going to happen in GT racing.
For sure. Well done. Have fun. You better get to the podium.
Yeah, awesome.
That certainly was an unpredictable race 1. Race 2 later on, not likely to be all that much different either. Another 1 hour encounter. The pro drivers will take the first stint on that occasion, though. That one, incidentally, will be starting at about 25 minutes past 3, so make sure you're in position this afternoon for what is set to be an enthralling 4th round of the championship. For now, though, drivers assembling, a big crowd assembling down by the podium. There are lots of people here this weekend. Graham, it's great to see the support for this championship. We keep raving to everybody and telling everyone how good it is. It's really nice to see so many spectators turning up and realising the same thing.
It's got a really loyal fan base. Snetterton always brings the crowds out. It's a great place to come and watch motorsport. But British GT beginning to get the momentum that it's deserved for some years now. And what will help that is that variety, the kind of battling we saw all the way down through that top 10. But also, you know, it was so nice to see a new winning team in Stella Motorsport there. They've had their travails, they're still working in the background with the car we've seen in previous seasons here, but to bring a new car here literally out the box and to come and win in that way, that was great stuff to see. And it's again, they're the tales that people like to come and see. It'll give them more backing, it gives the championship a bit more depth and some more storylines. More like that. That was an excellent race.
Yes, more of the same, please, and I'm sure we will get that later on this afternoon. But yeah, no, I echo your sentiments there. It's great to see a new car on the top step of the podium and that variety increasing in British GT. So there we have our 3rd placed GT3 combination. Jonny Adam, who brought the car home, but it was a fantastic first stint for Graham Davidson. Then we've got Ryan Ratcliffe and Glyn Geddy 2nd place. It's not quite the win, despite the fact that they led at various points in the race. In the end, the victory goes the way of Phil Keane with the 2nd stint in the Lamborghini Huracan. Adam Ballon, who started the car, did a superb job as well. They overcame an awful lot of overtaking they had to do. They were stuck in traffic for quite some time as well. They benefited, I guess, from the fact that they didn't have any pit stop penalty to serve, but nonetheless they had to get the job done, and Phil made that decisive move to take the race lead away just after the pit stops and escaped the battle behind. And we saw that even people like Johnny Cocker, when they got embroiled in that battle, they couldn't escape. Phil Keane was able to do so, though, and brought the car home for a fantastic victory.
Well, Johnny Cocker could have ended up anywhere on that podium at some point, with the exception of the win. But that 4-car battle in the last 20 minutes, real classic British GT action. And I think we've got more of the same to come later today with the 2nd race here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And one of the big fascinations is the mix of the two classes, the mix of different driver experiences out there, different cars that have different strengths and weaknesses as well out there. And we saw all of that unfold in that race. And Joe, that is why this championship is so excited to be involved with right now, isn't it? Each and every race that comes by is impossible to predict.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we saw multi-class getting involved there. The lapping of GT4 cars adds a huge dynamic to this and keeps it interesting for everyone. And then you've got the classes within the class, so the Pro-Am versus the Silvers, which are trying to be equal as much as they can with the weight or the pit stop penalty, and it keeps it interesting. Honestly, I was amazed how quick that hour just went. First time for me watching it from this view in a car actually is a bit easier to follow sometimes. Yeah, absolutely amazing race, and I hope it's been a good advert for British GT and GT racing as a whole, really.
I've been saying for years, you racing drivers have it easy. You only have to focus on one car. You know, that's the only thing you need to worry about. We've got 36 of the things to keep track of, but it's an awful lot of fun and great to have you here as well. We're looking forward to having you back again for race 2 later on. The GT4 podium presentation now being made as well. And what a stellar performance it was for the Audi R8 LMS GT4 car. We know that it had the potential. It's run well in things like the European GT4 Championship, for example, and it's great to have it here in the UK Championship, and great to see that it's straight on the pace. And I don't think that'll be the last appearance that we see of that car on the podium. McLaren's left, right and centre though, really, at the front of GT4. It was interesting to me, actually, the GT4 battles today. We saw at Alton Park, it was sort of McLaren versus Ford, wasn't it, for the battling at the front. This weekend, although the Fords were decent in qualifying, Graham, in the race they sort of faded, didn't they?
They did rather. Unfortunately, the number 19 car had that problem pretty early on with the puncture that just counted them out. Scott Maxwell was there and in the mix, but then they take that pit stop penalty, and they just weren't close enough to make that pay. But good to see a different looking podium, and great to see, well, a couple of new faces at this stage. Richard Williams can be described as lots of things, but a new face certainly isn't one of them. But good to see Richard Williams and Senna Fielding joyful on the top step there, and they'll pop back to the team, who will be absolutely overjoyed with that.
And it's the first Pro-Am win for a GT4 team this year as well. Both the races at Alton Park were won by silver driver combos, and goes to show that they've got we talk about balanced performance between the cars a lot, but this balancing that goes on between the silver cars and the Pro-Am contenders, it works, doesn't it, Joe? Because a Pro-Am team still has a good shot at winning races.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great incentive for the Am in that car. Williams has done such a good job, as Senan alluded to, that it's given them an opportunity to win overall. The pace he had in that car was probably closer to a silver than it was to the other Ams, and he's been able to get that Pro-Am car to win overall on the back of it, and obviously they get twice as many trophies as well in Pro-Am.
They've been here before and they'd like to be there again, I think, as well.
Very colourful podium, it should be said, by the way. Nicely orange, fluorescent yellow and green. But no, it's like we say, at this stage of the early stage of the championship, we're developing all sorts of storylines here that will carry through. What next?
And 3 different manufacturers as well on the podium in Pro-Am. Jonathan Wells, by the way, is the man who's making the presentations. He's the UK Motorsport Manager of Pirelli, and he has been handing out the trophies, and now stands well back, I'm sure, because for the 3rd time on this Snetterton podium today, the champagne sprays, and the crowd enjoying it, the drivers enjoying it as well. It's such a nice feeling, isn't it? And after an hour of stress and pressure and worry, and it's just so nice, isn't it, Joe, if you are lucky enough to be on that podium, release some of that energy, release some of that tension, and share the feeling with the crowd around you.
Yeah, definitely. Depends who you're sharing the podium with, and if you like them or not is one thing, but I'm surprised how much budget these guys have got, all spraying champagne. They've all got 2 pairs of suits.
Well, it was a full action hour of racing, with contact beginning before they even reached turn number 1. Plenty of contact down at the hairpin, and Lamborghini's on the receiving end of an awful lot of it. Sam Haan got tipped into a slide, and then the pit stops began, and that was really when we started to see the race dynamic shuffling, with those that were serving pit stop penalties slipping a bit further down the order, and it was, for a while at least, the number 7 Bentley of Ryan Ratcliffe that came out towards the sharp end of the field, having led early on. They dropped ground, then immediately started to regain it after the number 9 Century Motorsport car mysteriously slowed with an issue coming out of the first corner. There was drama, unfortunately, for the Bolt Motorsport McLaren, very close to a dream podium on their debut in the class, before they had contact with the GT4 car and spun off the road. For the much of the final portion of the race, it was all about the fight for the bottom steps of the podium, with Bentleys, Lamborghinis and Aston Martins trading places and trading paint on a few occasions as well. Phil Keane and Adam Ballon, though, took their first victory of the season, and they'll be looking to try and do the same in race 2 later on this afternoon.